Should be seeing our first slide.
Yep.
Yep, good, great. All right, well, we'll get started because we do have quite a bit to cover today. I'm really glad to be welcoming everyone here to our webinar, where we're going to be talking about and demonstrating how you can support your students with dyslexia in discovering reading materials in a variety of types and formats using CELA and the Dolphin EasyReader app. I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement. I am speaking to you today from Montreal, which is the unceded territory of the Dena'ina people of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Wherever you are, I invite you to be mindful of the traditional territory on which you find yourself. My name is Jessica Desormeaux, and I'm the Communications and Access Specialist at CELA. And I'm joined today by MJ Berry, who is the Head of Business Development in North America for Dolphin. We're going to have a presentation today that will be around 45 minutes long, and that should leave about 15 minutes for your questions. If you do have questions, we invite you to please type them into the Q&A feature on Zoom rather than the chat. If you have technical difficulties during the webinar, please try leaving and rejoining. And if we on our end have any technical difficulties, we thank you for your patience as we resolve them. Hopefully not. At the end of the webinar, a little later, you're going to be receiving an email. And in that email, there will be a link to the recording of today's session. There will also be a link to a survey that we would really appreciate you filling out to let us know how we did today. There's also going to be a link to the slides I'll be showing and a link to a cheat sheet that is going to help you get started with CELA and EasyReader. So the agenda for today is I'm going to tell you about CELA, and I'll tell you about what CELA offers for educators and other professionals who work with people who have print disabilities. I'm going to talk about the CELA collection as well as the Bookshare collection. I'll explain what that is and how it applies here. I'm going to tell you about CELA's direct-to-player service, which is something you need to know about to use CELA and EasyReader. I'm going to go over some basic information about dyslexia. And then I'm going to pass it on to MJ, who will start by telling you about a tool for assessing students' reading levels that can help you identify those who might might qualify for accommodations. And then she's going to launch into a demonstration of the EasyReader app and show you some great strategies and tools for helping your students with dyslexia. MJ is also going to tell you about EasyReader Premium benefits and how those might be, that might be a great option for you or for your institution. And then she'll tell you about where you can go for more help and support. So let's get started. So CELA is the Center for Equitable Library Access. We're a comprehensive, accessible library service, and we provide over 1.3 million books, magazines, and newspapers to people with print disabilities living in Canada. CELA is a
Hey,
not for
Jess.
yeah,
Jess.
yeah, yeah.
It's not in slideshow mode. We can see your
Okay.
notes and the slides.
Ah, all right. Let me try that again.
Yep.
I'm going to I'll stop my share and restart it. It's probably the easiest way. Let me just.
It really wouldn't matter.
That.
It's just that the slides aren't as big when, you know.
Yeah, it shouldn't be an issue. Let me do it this way. I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this. Is that better?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Um, so yes, CELA, we're a national not-for-profit organization, and we serve the approximately 3 million people across Canada with print disabilities. So we work through public libraries and we provide a collection of books, magazines, and newspapers in multiple accessible formats to people with print disabilities. So those with print disabilities can access the collection themselves through our website, by phone, by automatic selection. They can also access our collection through their public library or a combination of the two. Print disabilities. So the sort of all-encompassing basic definition is that it is a disability that prevents one from reading regular traditional print. So this includes those who are blind or visually impaired. It includes people with comprehension disabilities, such as dyslexia. And it also includes those with physical disabilities that make it difficult or impossible to read a print book. So that might be someone who is not able to hold a book or turn the pages, for example. Our mission is to support public libraries in the provision of accessible library collections and to champion the fundamental right of Canadians with print disabilities to access media and reading material in the format of their choice. So many of you here today may be educators or other professionals who support students with dyslexia, and you might be wondering how you can access CELA. So CELA offers two programs for those who support people with print disabilities. Teachers, school librarians, and other staff in elementary, secondary, and post-secondary institutions can register for the Educator Access program. This will allow them to support the reading needs of their students by being able to download books on their students' behalf. We encourage educators to also complete the terms of use form. This will allow access to titles, Bookshare titles in CELA's collection, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. And then other professionals who don't work in a school system or educational institution, such as occupational therapists, private tutors, speech and language pathologists, can sign up for our client access support program. This works basically the same way as the Educator Access program. The only difference is that client access support users can't access Bookshare titles. So in order to register, applicants need a library card from a CELA member library, and then they can complete the Educator Access or Client Access Support registration form, both available on our website. So the CELA collection provides access to over 1 million items, including books, magazines, and newspapers. Our collection is bilingual in English and French, and so is our service. And our collection is for all ages and interests. The CELA collection contains many fiction and nonfiction titles that you may be using in your classrooms, but I do want to note that CELA does not have textbooks, the CELA collection. On the other hand, CELA patrons and educators, as I mentioned, have the opportunity to access titles from Bookshare, which does include textbooks, in addition to a wide selection of other books in English and French and in many other languages as well. So what is this Bookshare that I keep mentioning? So Bookshare is a US-based accessible online library with 1.1 million full-text titles available to Canadian users. So CELA registered patrons and educators can access Bookshare titles directly through the CELA website. To do this, once registered for CELA, patrons must complete a proof of disability form and educators must complete the terms of use form, and submit it to us. These are both available on our website. This is optional, but it's a good option to know about because it's going to expand the selection considerably. Bookshare titles include bestsellers, novels, children's books, books in every genre, nonfiction books, and then books in English, French, and many other languages. As I mentioned before, Bookshare also has textbooks. It should be noted that since Bookshare is a US-based organization, the textbooks may not be all the same as what you're using in Canadian classrooms, but there's certainly some overlap there. Patrons can download Bookshare books in multiple formats, including DAISY text and audio. And I'll just note that the audio formats are mostly read with a synthetic voice. So that is like a computer generated voice as opposed to a book that is human narrated. So let's do a slightly deeper dive into what CELA has in its collection for readers of various ages and reading levels. To start with, it's helpful to know that when searching CELA's catalog, you can filter your search results by audience categories. So these are adult, child, preschool, and teen. You can also find new titles that have been added recently to our collection, divided by these categories through the new titles link, which you can get to through the CELA homepage. For early readers, CELA offers popular chapter book series such as the I Can Read leveled series. We have audiobooks. We've got kids classics like Charlotte's Web, many more. We have nonfiction titles for kids, and we also have a number of children's magazines. And then for older kids and teens and beyond, we have numerous fiction and nonfiction titles. At this age, kids can start learning how to search our catalog, download items for themselves, and use reading apps like EasyReader independently. Our collection for teens includes popular novels and books for English class, such as works by Indigenous authors. We have advanced nonfiction books for assignments. We also have books on social skills, as well as preparing to go into the workforce, such as interview and job finding skills. And then as students go on to college and university, CELA can supplement their academic reading needs with novels and magazines and books on financial management, self-help, and other life skills. A CELA membership is lifelong, and we can meet the reading needs at any time in an individual's life. So it's great to get started early, and that membership can continue for the rest of someone's life. I want to mention how pleased we are to partner with many of Canada's reading and awards programs for children and teens to ensure everyone can be included and can participate by having accessible formats of selected and nominated titles. So nationally, we offer titles from the TD Canadian Children's Literature Awards, several Canadian Children's Book Centre Awards, and we offer accessible materials and books as part of the TD Summer Reading Club. Then for regional and provincial reading programs, we include books in our collection from the Forest of Reading, First Nation Communities Read, Hackmatack, Manitoba Young Readers' Choice Awards, New Brunswick Summer Reading Club, and the BC Summer Reading Club. So now that I've covered some details about about what we have in our collection, we'll move on to how to actually get these reading materials. So CELA offers several different physical and digital delivery options for our various formats. And today we're going to be focusing on one called Direct to Player. This is the option that is essential to know about when using CELA, using EasyReader and CELA together. So Direct to Player is a digital delivery format It's a quick and convenient way to receive DAISY audio and e-text books. You can choose your own titles through the CELA website or even directly through the EasyReader app, which is a really convenient option to know about. Patrons can also opt into our automatic selection. This means having books chosen by our system according to the patron's preferences, and then they're transferred to the virtual bookshelf automatically on a regular basis. So today's webinar is going to be focusing on direct-to-player and the Dolphin EasyReader app to get CELA or Bookshare titles onto your device. And so with that in mind, something really helpful to know about is if you're using the CELA website to select books, in order for them to appear on your direct-to-player bookshelf, which is the option that you need to access the book in EasyReader, be sure to select the direct-to-player option from the Choose a Format drop-down menu. So on the slide right now, I'm showing a book in our catalog, and there is a drop-down menu titled Choose a Format, and the option DAISY Audio Direct-to-Player is selected. So you would select that, select Get It, and then a few minutes later, that book is going to be available on EasyReader for you. The same thing applies if you want DAISY text. You would select DAISY text, direct to player, select Get It, and then you can access the book on EasyReader. So if you would like more help or support on direct to player, on Dolphin EasyReader, on many other topics, you can check out our help page on our website. So that's at celalibrary.ca/help. You can also always give us a call or an email. So our contact center phone number is 1-855-655-2273. And our email address is help@celalibrary.ca. Before I pass things on to MJ, I will just really quickly cover some basics about dyslexia, just so we're all on the same page. So dyslexia is a learning disability. It affects one's ability to read accurately and fluently. It affects word recognition and spelling. It does not affect vision. So this can be a common misconception about dyslexia, that it's a visual disability. It's actually a neurological difference that affects one's ability to decode print. Its severity differs from person to person. One individual with dyslexia is not going to necessarily experience it in the same way as another, or to the same degree. It's a hereditary condition. It has nothing to do with upbringing or how someone is taught. It is something that one is born with. This is all information from the Dyslexia Canada website. So Dyslexia Canada is a Canadian national charity that supports and provides resources and information on dyslexia and champions the rights of children with dyslexia. They also have resources for adults with dyslexia, so that's a really great resource to know about that I highly recommend checking out if you haven't already. So I think I will pause here and just see if we have any questions so far. You'll have a chance later.
We do.
Okay.
Proof of disability form. What would that include dyslexia?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a form on the CELA website to fill out, and basically what is needed is to have a qualifying professional fill it out with, we don't need details about it, they just need to fill out their contact information and sign it confirming that the individual has a disability, has a print disability. So hopefully that answers
And
your question.
how long does it typically take for a book that you've placed in direct to player to get to the EasyReader app?
Yeah, that's the question of the hour. When ideally it's a few minutes, like I would give it at least 10 minutes to be on the safe side. But at the same time, sometimes I have to admit there are occasionally delays that can make it take longer. If there's a real problem going on, we do inform. We do keep people informed of that. But you can hope to see it within 10 minutes. I, but yeah, that can vary depending on the book and what's going on.
And would ADHD be considered a qualifying disability?
So I can't speak to that specifically because I don't have the knowledge about individual disabilities. But what the key thing about print disabilities is that it is any disability that affects the ability to read regular print. And what can be a helpful way to think about it is that the format needs to be changed, not the content. So we don't change the content of any of the reading materials. We're just changing the format. If it becomes more accessible by having audio format or e-text or whatever it is, then that would qualify as a print disability. But if it's the content that needs to be changed, that doesn't count as a print disability.
Yeah. And there are lots of resources online that sort of lay out the qualifications. All of this, an accessible library is governed by copyright law. And that copyright law is, pretty broad in terms of who qualifies, well, no, it's pretty narrow in that you have to have a physical disability, an intellectual disability, a visual impairment, or a qualifying print disability. So when you get into that print disability area, it's really about qualified experts experience with a student. If a student has ADHD and they can't focus on text on the page, a lot of times an auditory format will be given to them and they're successful. So actually we're going to jump into that slide, like more kids qualify than you think. I think this is a good time to jump in there. We have a couple more questions, but since we're on the topic, do you want to move forward?
Move forward. Yeah.
So great segue. It's almost like we planted you in our audience. That is a message that I think worldwide, all of the accessible libraries, including Dolphin as a tool, want to get out there. There was a study published at the Assistive Technology Industry Association about 3 years ago, and I think it was from Georgia Tech. But basically, the percentage of students actually using assistive technology was only like 6%. And this is specifically like reading disabilities. And it should have been more like 20% of students. So there's a big gap in the students who qualify for reading accommodations, such as EasyReader and an accessible library. And so how do you go about catching those students. So we made a recommendation here. Again, these are going to be in your slide handouts. We recommend that you go to the Don Johnston site and get uPAR. And uPAR is the Universal Protocols for Assessment in Reading, written by Denise DeCoste. It is a free download. The printed book is a free download. But Don Johnston also offers a tech version in which you can assess lots of students all at once. So kind of scooping up the students who might be falling behind in grade level text, et cetera, and really practicing that response to intervention, getting them tier 1 support with maybe an accommodation and differentiating instruction, and then distinguishing the students in the next tier who might need more subgroup direct instruction, remediation, and then the top tier services. But the point being to catch those students before they're operating under the threshold of success. So not waiting for students to fail. These are students who are included in regular education, reading below grade level. So yeah, that's the message. More students qualify. We did have one more, we had a couple more questions. I've used CELA and tried to access books, but sometimes I get a CD mailed to me. Why is that?
Yeah, I guess that would depend. That sounds like you might have selected the CD format. I could jump back quickly to if you're using our website to access, that's not a good example. There we go. To select books, you'll see on that choose a format menu, there is Daisy Audio and then CD in parentheses next to it. So if you select that, then you'll be mailed a CD, and then it reads very similarly, Daisy Audio direct to player. That's the one you would want to select to have the digital format that you could use, that you would be able to access through EasyReader. I'm not sure if that's if that makes sense, or if that's helpful in terms of what you've experienced.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, back to you guys are, and these are great questions. I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to let how do I do? Let me see, share screen. No. Oh, you've got to stop sharing yours.
Yeah, I just did. It should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Good.
All right. So I'm transferring over here to the Bookshare website because they're the ones in this scenario who require proof of disability here. And I can put this link in our follow-up email. Here's the qualifications, but here are qualifying professionals in schools: AT professionals, dyslexia specialists, learning disability specialists, librarians, physical or occupational therapists, reading specialists, resource, special ed teacher, school psychologist, speech language, teacher of the visually impaired, other professionals with appropriate experience. And then outside of the school, all of these doctors and optometrists, etc. So hopefully that answers that question. And I will stop sharing. Okay. So I can't see the questions anymore.
Oh, so we do have a question. Can a public library register a student or library patron under the client access? So register is the question, can the public library register someone for the client access support program? If that's what it is, it's not really, the library registration is not really set up that way. It's more set up for libraries registering regular patrons. So it would be more a matter of helping if someone wanted to register for client access support, the library could help them do that, but it would be them self-registering. If that makes sense. And then do I have to return the CDs? And if so, where do I send them? CDs do not have to be returned. They can, and we recycle them. They would be sent to, you can actually just flip the CD over so that the address will be visible in the envelope that you received it in. But you don't have to send them to us.
Are students in schools getting CDs?
Probably a lot less,
Okay.
But it's certainly possible.
Gotcha. I didn't realize that. Okay. I think, are we ready to move on then? No more questions?
We have one more question about for a student who has ADHD, wouldn't we have to have psych ed assessment documentation around a perceptual disability to know if they qualify? So Bookshare is not looking for those details. It's just if you have a qualifying professional, one of the ones that MJ showed just earlier, we also list them on the CELA website. They just need to attest to the fact that the person has a qualifying disability. We don't need they're not looking for the documentation to prove that. So
okay.
I think, yeah, we're ready to move on.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, I have opened my EasyReader app for you here. And I'm going to start with at the beginning. And again, you don't have to furiously write notes because I'm sending you a cheat sheet that's going to give you literally step by step what to do. So just kind of hang out and watch, and then you'll have it. So I have my iPad here, but just so you know, you can get the EasyReader app on a variety of platforms. You can get it on iOS, Android, Amazon Fire, Windows, and in our premium version, you can get Mac. So I'm working on this is my iPad, and I have obviously previously signed in to my EasyReader app. But had you not, you would be asked to put in your Dolphin account information. So you do have to create a Dolphin account one time, and it's down here at the bottom. I could sign out, but I'll just tap on it. And this is how I am logged in right now. So I'm logged in, but this is what your screen will look like. You'll have to log in one time. You'll get an email. You'll need to verify that that's you. And once you do that, you're ready to go. This thing here on the side is what we call the side menu. So the first time you ever open EasyReader, you're going to open to the default location of My Books. You won't have any books because you haven't downloaded any, but you've signed into the app. And what you do is you tap in the upper left-hand corner. There is a book icon. So I tap that, and then the side menu pops out. The first folder is My Books. That's where students will be working more often. But there is a section here that says Manage Libraries. In North America, CELA is automatically turned on. CELA, Bookshare, Project Gutenberg, Google Classroom, and Microsoft Education are the defaults in North America. But in the world, we connect to about 50 accessible libraries around the world. And if you have students with dual citizenship, maybe you have students from the UK, you know, there's a library there called RNIB. So students can have memberships to other accessible libraries, and many of them are listed here. Okay, so getting started with my books, let's go to the CELA library first. And here I am in the CELA library, and there's my direct-to-player bookshelf, and those are all the books that you've placed using direct-to-player on your bookshelf. And so it usually takes a second or two to load, and then I'll see everything that I placed there. After the books appear, I can tap a title. So let's, I have a lot of audiobooks here. You can tell by the icons that are next to the book picture. There's one that's a daisy text. So if I tap on this, I can now download that book. Let me go here to this one. This book I need to first borrow. That other book I probably already borrowed, but if you put it on direct to player, you have to select borrow. And that takes a second. And then you have the option to open and stream that book directly from the CELA library or download that book. So we always suggest that you download the book, because when you do download the book, you don't need to be connected to the internet to be able to read your books. You can just go to My Books, and anything you've downloaded is right here in your My Books folder. So one more thing over in CELA though, before we start reading books, students also have the ability to read for pleasure. So maybe, you know, the teacher's helping them with their direct to player selections. That's required reading, but CELA has a plethora of awesome genres that students can choose from. Fiction, bestsellers, fantasy, historical fiction, you name it, it's in there. So, you know, we always like to encourage students to also read for pleasure. Let me go back here to my books and let's get into a book so we can start applying some of those strategies that benefit students with dyslexia most. Sorry, I'm going to unplug this so that my cord's not in the way. There we go, much better. Okay, so I'm going to get a little closer to the top here. One of the first things we want to do, well, actually, let's read a book first, just so I can show you, give you some, here's someone at ATIA asked me to download this. So I did. It's Killer of the Flower Moon. This is what the book looks like when you open it up. You have touchscreen capabilities here. So if I want to blow up that text, I can do that as big as I need to, and I can start reading right away.
April. Millions of tiny flowers spread over the Blackjack Hills and vast prairies in the Osage Territory of Oklahoma. There are Johnny Jump Ups and Spring.
Oh, wrong button.
The Osage writer John Joseph Matthews said that the galaxy of petals.
Okay, so that is just a text file, a daisy text file, and then we're deploying voices to read that aloud. If we go back to My Books, let me show you some of the audiobooks here. Loading audio. I should have chosen one I'd done before. Let me see if I can get out. Oh, there we are.
Lighthouse.
Production of this accessible audiobook was made possible in part by the generous support of CNIB donors.
By Eugenia Price. Price.
So now we have a professionally narrated book. And one thing of note, when you're in a audiobook, you can adjust how you move through the book. So let me just I can move by way of time. Let me get you closer. I can move by time, which is what you would want to move through with if you're using an audiobook. You want to move 15 seconds ahead or 15 seconds back, 2 minutes ahead, 2 minutes back, etc. Now, if you're in a text format of a book, you'll want to use like pages and headings, because we're looking, those things are tagged within the book. So just to address the bottom narration or the navigation at the bottom real quick. And then also in this book, if I were to navigate via book default, I could now move through text features like headings, chapters, pages. If the teacher tells me to turn to page 10, I can turn to page 10. Okay. But that's an audiobook. All right. So let's go back to my books and explore some other books. Let's go back to that Killer of the Flower Moon book. Okay, so I had made the text bigger, but basically this is how the book comes in its default format. That's probably not working for anyone. So the first thing you want to do if you're working with students who have dyslexia is adjust the word and sentence spacing. So we're going to go up and tap in the upper right-hand corner. There is an A icon. We're going to tap that. That's where all of your text settings are controlled. So when you tap that A, now you have control of the text size. So strategies are to say that only a few words per sentence. So let's make that text really big. We also want to adjust the margins, and line spacing is really important. So I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to make the text just a little bit smaller so you can see more of it. Okay, now another strategy that works really well and that we can access from this open dialog box is being able to change the color scheme. We have a few preset, but you can also go ahead and set those specifically with certain background colors or whatever. For time's sake today, I'm just gonna pick a scheme. Okay, so now the book looks much different than it did before. Oh, I forgot to do something. Let's change the font. We also have open dyslexic font. So now we can go ahead and read.
Makes it look as if the gods had left confetti in May, when coyotes howl beneath an unnervingly large moon. Taller plants.
Now, some students don't need the auditory support. They don't need text to speech, and some do. So if this is good enough to be able to adjust the text so that the student can move through it fluidly, they might not need, auditory support. It might be over accommodation, but if they do, we can also change that. We have voices to choose from here. We support many languages, and your device really drives which voices are available. So like on an iPad, you're going to get all those voices that Apple have included, hard-coded to their device. If you're working on an Android tablet, you're going to get the voices from that platform. But we install 2 each, male and female voices from each language. So in North America, the standard 3 languages that are installed are English, Spanish, Mexican Spanish, and French Canadian. So those 3 languages, and it installs the interface. It's a smart install. It knows what your operating system is already using in terms of language, so it will adjust itself. Anyway, so we can pick a different voice if we want. We can increase the rate. So we can change how that sounds. Let's increase the rate a little bit. Okay, so let's hit play.
Taller plants, such as spiderworts and black-eyed Susans, begin to creep over the tinier blooms, stealing their light and water. The necks of the smaller flowers break and their petals flutter.
And okay, I'll just hit the pause button there. So the next strategy is using sentence and word highlighting. Those are found in the exact same place, and you can adjust those. The text color, the background color, all of that can be customized. But like I said, I just chose a theme. I can choose a different theme, show you how that looks. Here's high contrast.
Away, and before long they are buried underground. This is why the Osage Indians refer to...
I might not like blue on blue highlighting, but that's what was chosen. It kind of stays away from those those typical colors that people with visual impairments don't see well, who are also colorblind. So that's the rationale there. All right, so we've already read from an audiobook. I don't think we need to revisit that. But what we do need to squeeze in here is getting web text. So I can also go out on the web and copy text and have it read in EasyReader. Let me just go to an article here about manatees. Oh yeah, the manatees are here. So I tap on a word, hold it down, and I can drag that and hit copy. If I go back to EasyReader, all I have to do is move down to this place that says clipboard texts and hit the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner. I have a chance to title it, but it's already pulled the name about the manatees, so I'll just say okay. And now we have that web page inside of EasyReader. Okay. So now I'm gonna make just a hard cut. Everything that you have seen so far is in the version of EasyReader that is free. So I'm going to show you a couple of extra features that come in the premium edition of EasyReader, which is really a nominal fee. It's about $10 per student, starting at 10 students. The thing about EasyReader Premium is it gets you a variety of services. If you're working in a school and you're a large districts were coming to us saying, like, how can we manage all of these one at a time kind of installs and getting students passwords and into their accounts. So we created Premium as a way that you could handle scaling and building capacity within the school. So I'll talk more about that in a second, very briefly, but I do want to show you that as part of the premium package, you also get, like I said, Mac, iOS, and you can read PDFs. So this is a PDF of just bad science, one man's recording of scientific experiments that are skewed. Now I can read that as is. This is exactly how the PDF looks. And it's important that we have a version that, it's important that it's accessible, but a lot of times, especially with education related material, there are diagrams and pictures that have corresponding text. We're teaching through imagery as well. So, it's important that we be able to read PDFs.
1. Matter. I spend a lot of time talking to people who disagree with me. I would go so far as to say,
Okay, so we can read it. Not super elegant, but there's a purpose for it. In the upper right-hand corner of the EasyReader app, I can touch these dots and I can switch to a text view. And what that does is when I switch to the text view, we actually convert that PDF so that students can apply their preferences to that text and interact with it in a way that they're most comfortable. And then, you know, like if they come to a picture, they can go right back and look at what text is with which diagram per se. Okay. So that's one extra feature that you get. And then the other is Google Classroom and Microsoft Education. If you are using that in your schools, students can get direct access to their Google Classroom accounts and their Microsoft Education accounts. So I have a few teachers here, Mr. White, English, Mrs. Rosenwald, and she has assigned me 3 documents. Oh boy, Pride and Prejudice, chapters 1 through 3. Gonna have to download that. Boom. Now I can open it. And here we are. So if you have worksheets and things that you need to provide to students, that's the way to do it. So I am going to go back here and change my camera. There we go. I'm back. Move my screen over here. And if we can go back to the last slide, I don't seem to have that.
Yeah.
And so just to wrap up the premium stuff, again, you know, totally elective, and EasyReader will always be a free app. We're always going to support our libraries, but we have a lot of districts who really have expanded. And can you go back to the prior slide?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So another thing to remember, that features you get are synchronization across all devices. So I was working in my iPad, but if I have the EasyReader app on my Android phone and I get home from school and I want to continue reading where I left off, when I open EasyReader and I open that book, I'm going to be in the exact same place. So, yeah, I think I covered all of the other benefits of having EasyReader. If you're interested in that, you can always reach out. And yeah, then we have help and support, which we'll get to right at the end. I want to give a moment to see if we have any questions. So
yeah, we did have a few new ones come up. I think you answered some of them in what you were talking about, though.
Okay, yes. Speed can be changed. Yep. Daisy books are red and highlighted. No, I mean, the default is set to on with that. You can go into those text settings and turn that off. Or like, you know, if students don't need highlighting, you just select the no highlighting in each of those spots. So yeah, you can do that. Will Daisy ebooks read aloud? Yeah, no, I did that one. Is there a format? No, human voices are not a format. Like pre-recorded Daisy audiobooks are an option, and sometimes they're read you know, via a human voice. Sometimes they're read via a really high quality text to speech engine. But you know, the bottom line is, if no one has recorded that book professionally, like sat and read it, then there is no human audio file. So you can always look in a different collection. I don't know how that works. If someone's searching for a title, does it distinguish like Bookshare and CELA books when you're in CELA if you have a membership?
Yeah, if you're searching on our website, it'll actually specify, so you can filter for CELA or Bookshare, but it'll actually specify for audiobooks whether it'll say synthetic voice, that's like the computer generated
Yeah.
voice, or it'll
Okay.
say human narrated. So yeah,
Gotcha.
you can see that.
So you can see that. Okay.
Mhm.
Hopefully that answered your question, Heather.
Uh,
Can students with access limitations navigate the Dolphin app using switches? No. Right now, it is not switch accessible. However, I mean not on a tablet scenario. I, Actually, I don't even know if that's true, because I know I saw some students using Apple accessibility and they were moving through the menus via a switch. But to be really honest with you, I don't know if that was, I think it was an Apple accessibility feature. I'm not sure if there's like some type of app that you have to install for switch accessibility. I can do a little research and maybe follow up with you if you want to send me an email, John, because I don't know the answer to that. But here's another thing I'm thinking. If they're using another type of technology that makes, other applications accessible via a switch, they could use the Windows version. So on a full operating Windows computer, it's available on Windows as well. So that might be the alternative. Is Dolphin EasyReader weaving in AI features now or in the future? Well, Victoria, you're not on our development team. I can't really tell you that, Victoria. We try and keep up with technology as it develops. It is a free app, so I'm just going to be really honest with you. Like, to throw hundreds of thousands into something that's free to people, I don't know if we'll do that or not. But I know that our development department is deep in generative AI right now. Where we'll use that tech in our solutions and offerings, I can't say. Even I don't know that. Yes. Do I need to have CELA and okay, Dolphin EasyReader is a product. So Dolphin isn't a product, that's the company. So you need to have CELA and EasyReader, but no, not Dolphin. Is there a way homeschooled kids, BC enrolled, can access? Yeah, homeschooled kids, I mean, you'd have to pay for it. It's $30, like a personal premium account. So $30. Not expensive at all. All right. That looks like we got it all.
I see, sorry, I see one more question that we skipped over about Heather's asking, is there some sort of promo material I can share with some of my public library colleagues about using or promoting this with kids' summer reading? So on the CELA website, if you go, so celalibrary.ca, and you click on the For Libraries page, we have a special section dedicated to outreach and promotion. So you might find there, specifically for kids programs, we also have a section on CELA for kids and teens, and we have a page dedicated to summer reading programs. So I would definitely invite you to start there. But if you have something more specific you're looking for, please reach out to us, and we can help you out with that.
Okay, and then last but not least, like I said, you're going to get an email, but here is an example. This is the cheat sheet. Your step-by-step instructions will show you how to handle EasyReader Premium. You will get the recording of today's webinar and some other things. We do encourage that you share the recording, share these helpful resources. We also have training on our website in the Dolphin Learning Zone. There is an EasyReader course. So if you're interested in, practicing, going through the lessons again, please jump on our website at youradolphin.com. And in the follow-up email, you'll have all of that information, plus Jessica and I have provided our contact information. So thanks for spending your 1 hour lunch break with us, or your morning cup of coffee, wherever you are in the country. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Jess, thanks a lot.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right,
Yeah,
I'll be
we'll
in
speak to you
touch.
soon. Sounds good.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye.